If you're a service business, then you can drop the quality. So quality can drop if, you don't have the right people there and you're overloading people. Sometimes, for example, a client success or a customer success or an account manager will be like, oh, I can take on 50 accounts. No, you cannot. At least not well. So you have to be able to optimize for the optimal frontier of things. So for example, an optimal frontier in the gym is doing maybe 5% heavier than you would have done prior. But even if you can do the 10% or the 20%, it might not be optimal to improve by 20% each week. But it might be optimal to improve by 5% each week. So it's much the same when it comes to, system load. So for example, we've been growing like crazy, but we understand that probably growing by, 15-ish% per month is what is functionally effective for us, instead of us like tripling ad spend and like just going absolutely freaking crazy. Like we're already going crazy. Like we book per day, probably 25 to 40 demos per day. Like crazy. Like as in like 25 to 40 people need to be pitched. They're ready, right? So yeah, like breaking quality can definitely suffer and people can try to take on more than they can. And the human brain is best used when it's optimized and it's healthy. G-class boss, I'm just another guy, man. I'm still learning. What risk did you avoid that you now regret? What risk did I avoid that I now regret? What's up, Kashumi? What's up, Tash? Amen. Thank you, Albert. So what's a risk that I avoid that you now regret? Good question. I don't think I regret too many things, man. I think I'm very risk tolerant. I tend to take a lot of risk. I don't know if there's a risk that I wanted to take and I didn't take because I was scared to take the risk. I think a lot of the time I've taken it, and because I've taken it, I've been able to learn from it. I'll give you an example. Moving into this office/apartment was a risk. Like at the time, company's revenue was growing, but like it wasn't to the point where I wanted to spend something like this. But my brain was like, hey, listen, Dami, if you invest into this, if you do that, how much harder would you go? And I was like, bro, you've done this before. I remember being 21, sleeping on a broken bed, not having enough money to spend on the broken bed, right? And still sleeping on it anyway. So those risks that I wanted to take in my early 20s, I took and they were fortunate to be successful. But I've taken so many risks that also didn't work out. I have more stories of risks that I took that didn't work out than risks that I didn't take. I think most of the time I've taken risks. When I met Ty Lopez, I had the opportunity. I asked him if he wanted to be a Kusa. I know he's going through some stuff right now, so I'm not going to go deep on that. When I met Gary Vee, I had to finesse through the security. I took a picture with him when I was 19 and used it on my ads. So I think I've taken a lot of risks. Even when I was younger, if there was a hot girl, I'm talking to her. Like I had a lot of success with women in my early 20s. I'll keep it PG on this call. But like that's because I've been risk tolerant. Like from a young age, even in high school. At 16, I was in different countries building schools. But I've also been the guy that got beat up. Well, not beat up, but like I've been the guy I've got scars on my body still from, serious incidents. And like I patched it up after, so yeah, man, you gotta take risk. And that's what also gives you stories, as well. What's up, Sarah? What part of your success, Alvin, what part of your success is luck? Well, instead of luck, I'll just say it's serendipity. I'd say it's God. But yeah, man, I give a lot of it to God, man. There's so many times when I thought, hey man, it's the end. Like you're back at zero and you're not going to get up there. Look, I've always been a bit delusionally resilient. And maybe God's blessed me for that. Like because of that belief, he said, you know what, Dami, as a result of your conviction, I'm going to bless you. Right? So perhaps that's something. But also, for example, the ability to articulate myself, it's a blessing that I have the genetics of my parents that are above average orators and I'm the firstborn child. Right? So, I'm lucky that the area in which I grew up in, I've had a number of friends get murdered and I didn't get murdered there in those areas. And I'm in a safer area, right? And I know how to move. So, because I've had my close calls as well. So I think I'm just really grateful that God is a huge part of my success. And I don't think that I'm a magician. I don't think I'm perfect. I'm very comfortable with my flaws. But I do think I out-hustle and out-strategize most of my contemporaries. And then I get blessed with the luck or God's blessings as a result of trying to think a few steps ahead. What would it take to eliminate 50% of competitors? 50% of my competitors. Oh, well, look, for most people, it's just being consistent. Most people are not consistent, period, bro. Like, most people are not consistent, period. They think they are, then they get around some. I'm not as consistent compared to freaking Alex Hormozy.